I'm a cop. My wife cheated on me, and I had all the power in the world to ruin her life. But instead of pulling the trigger, I did something much worse. Subscribe, hit that like button, and let's dive in. They say trust is like glass. Once broken, it's never the same. You can try to glue it back together, but the cracks will always be there. I learned that the hard way. I'm Ryan Carter, 38 years old, a patrol officer with 10 years of service. I've been married to Jessica for 6 years. No kids, just a house, 2 cars, and what I thought was a solid marriage. She was 31, smart, ambitious, and worked as a marketing manager at a big firm. She loved her job, and I loved that she had something she was passionate about. We weren't perfect, but we were stable. At least, I thought we were. Jessica had always been into fitness. She loved the gym, spent hours there, and even convinced me to go a few times. But somewhere along the way, things changed. She became obsessed. If she wasn't at work, she was at the gym. If she wasn't at the gym, she was out with co-workers. At first, I was happy for her. She was in the best shape of her life, confident and glowing. But then, the late nights started. The hushed phone calls, the texts she'd quickly swipe away when I walked into the room, the way she suddenly started wearing perfume before heading to the gym. I noticed, but I ignored it. Then came the first real red flag. One night, she came home late, sweaty, exhausted, but something was off. Her gym bag was in the car. I went to grab it for her, but when I picked it up, it felt too light, like it was empty. When I unzipped it, all I found was a water bottle and a towel. No gym clothes, no shoes, nothing. That's when the pit in my stomach formed. I started paying attention, and the more I did, the worse it got. She was texting someone constantly, always smiling at her phone. Her boss, David, started calling at odd hours. When I asked about it, she laughed it off. Work stuff. But why was work stuff happening at 10 p.m.? And why did she start dressing up more for casual meetings? Something wasn't right, and I was going to find out what. I had access to more resources than most husbands in my situation. I wasn't just a man with suspicions. I was a cop, and cops know how to find answers. The first thing I did was check Jessica's location history. She didn't know that I had set up tracking on her phone months ago when she got a new one. A safety precaution, I had told her, and I hadn't checked it once, until now. The gym? That was only part of the story. She wasn't spending hours there. She was making stops, hotel parking lots, a specific high-end restaurant she never mentioned. And most telling of all, the office building where David worked. But I needed more than just location data. So I used my connections. A buddy of mine worked security at a private gym, the same one Jessica swore was just a place to clear her mind. It took one phone call, one favor. The next morning, I had access to the security footage. And there it was. Jessica and David, not just working out together, but laughing, touching, disappearing into the private training rooms for long periods. And then a clip that sealed it. Them leaving the gym together, her getting into his car, him leaning in, kissing her. That was the moment. The exact second my marriage ended in my mind. But my reaction wasn't rage. It wasn't even sadness. It was something colder, something calculating. Because now, I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to ruin her. I could have confronted her that night, shown her the footage, demanded an explanation. But that would have given her control, let her twist the narrative, cry, beg, manipulate. I wasn't interested in explanations. I wanted consequences, and I had the means to make sure she felt every single one of them. First, I cut off her access to money. She had a separate account, but our joint account, I drained it. I sold my car and transferred everything to a personal, untouchable account. Then, I put our house on the market, overnight. The paperwork had already been signed. I just needed the final push. That morning, while Jessica was out at the gym, I packed up what little I cared about and moved everything out. Then I started making her life miserable in ways she wouldn't even expect. I knew her daily routine. I knew where she went, where she shopped, where she spent her money. I made sure her credit cards were frozen. I had a cop friend pull her over for a random traffic stop, just to add some stress to her already crumbling world. I made sure her gym membership was mysteriously cancelled. And then, just to rub salt in the wound, I anonymously tipped off her company about inappropriate conduct between an employee and her boss. HR doesn't like workplace affairs. Within a week, David was under investigation, and Jessica was conveniently let go. She called me over and over, each voicemail more desperate than the last. I never answered. Instead, I sent her one final message. You chose him. Now you get to live with that choice. She was officially broke, jobless, and alone. And that was only the beginning. Jessica had no idea how fast everything could be taken from her. One moment, she was on top of the world, thinking she had me wrapped around her finger, living the double life she thought she could balance. The next, she had nothing. No money, no job, no house, no stability. Just the realization that the fantasy she was chasing was never real to begin with. David, her so-called better choice, was drowning in his own mess. His wife had found out everything. I made sure of that. She didn't just take half in the divorce, she took his reputation. David was fired from his company for violating workplace conduct policies. He had no way of bouncing back easily. His business connections were burned. His cushy executive job? Gone. And Jessica? She went from business meetings and gym sessions to couch surfing at a friend's place because the lease on her apartment, one she thought she could afford alone, was suddenly too much. Meanwhile, I thrived. The moment I left her, my life elevated. My career had taken a major turn for the better. I had always been a solid cop, but now, without the emotional baggage of a broken marriage, I was focused. I had energy. I took on major cases, and my department noticed. Within months, I got promoted to detective, the role I had been chasing for years. It was almost poetic how the moment I cut the dead weight, my life finally started falling into place. I wasn't just moving forward, I was thriving. But Jessica, she wasn't done yet. Desperate people do desperate things. I had already crushed her financially and socially, but Jessica wasn't one to accept defeat quietly. She wanted revenge. I started noticing strange things. First, my car's tires were mysteriously slashed one night. Then, my apartment door lock had deep scratches around it, as if someone had tried to pick it. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe bad luck. Maybe just a coincidence. Until my car was set on fire. It was parked in the secured lot of my apartment building, and yet someone had managed to douse it in gasoline and torch it. Security cameras? Oh, I checked them. And guess who I saw lurking around the lot the night before? Jessica. I knew she was unstable, but this was next level. She had gone from a manipulative cheater to a full-blown criminal. And the irony? She really thought she could get away with this when I was a cop. I didn't go to her immediately. No, I let her dig her own grave. I filed an anonymous police report about an arson case, making sure it would blow up into something she couldn't escape from. The detectives handling it had no clue I had personal ties to the suspect, but I did. And I made sure that every bit of evidence pointed directly at her. A week later, Jessica was arrested, publicly, in broad daylight, right outside a coffee shop where she was meeting some mutual friends. She didn't even see it coming. And the best part? She thought she could call me for help, as if, after everything, I'd still be there to save her. I let her sit in jail for 3 days before she finally cracked and called David. But David was long gone. He had moved across the country to escape his ruined reputation. Jessica lost everything. She thought she could rebuild after our divorce, that she could land on her feet, spin the story, and make me the villain. But she forgot one thing. When you betray someone, you don't get to decide the consequences. I do. Betrayal isn't just about cheating. It's about choices. And when you make the wrong one, you don't just lose love. You lose everything. Subscribe, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done?